It has been a little while since I did one of these. It is time for a best of 3 series of Protoss versus Protoss. Spawning in the southeast position, hailing from Poland, we have none other than Team Liquid's MaNa here in game number 1 on Odyssey LE. And his opponent spawning in the top left corner, playing with the red Protoss pieces. He goes by the nickname of ShoWTimE. Now, of course, ShoWTimE, definitely one of the best non-Korean Protoss players in StarCraft 2 right now. He's most definitely also the best player out of Germany at this point in time. And I've had a lot of people request me to go ahead and cast some more games here of ShoWTimE. I know that there are indeed a lot of Polish viewers for that matter, but in particular a lot of German viewers that really enjoy watching the content. And, I mean, it's about time to call for a little bit more ShoWTimE. Generally speaking, it's a little tricky to get some more games of him going because he doesn't really play as many online cups, and of course most of the replays that I get to cast are indeed from online tournaments. But regardless, ShoWTimE is an absolute beast. He does have a bit of a different playstyle actually from MaNa. I always sort of view ShoWTimE more or less as like that macro-focused player. He's perfectly capable of playing cheese in many of the occasions, right? And of course, Liquid MaNa, you know, likewise, also perfectly capable of playing a macro-oriented style. But I feel like MaNa is much more of a player who likes to execute timing attacks, whereas ShoWTimE prefers to simply sitting back, eating the initial damage in the earlier part of the game, and eventually overpowering his opponent just because of superior defense. So we'll see exactly what both of these players have got in store for us today, because of course in this one video I'm going to be casting the entire best of 3 series, so that does mean that we have up to 3 games in this single match. Both players actually opening up absolutely identical so far. MaNa mining quite a little bit of gas right there, with ShoWTimE ended up saturating both of the assimilators at this point in the game already. Of course, it's very important to make sure that you take those gases early on, because tech is literally the most important thing in this matchup as it is right now. I mean, both players are going to be opening up with the double Stalker play, and of course, using the Stalkers is not just going to be very helpful to figure out exactly what your opponent is going for, and of course, you know, try and shoot down maybe an opponent or a Stalker of 2 of your opponent. But of course, they're also extremely good at just simply scouting out the map. Protoss versus Protoss, I'll be the first to admit it, right? It is one of the matchups that has some of the most cheese in it. I mean, most of the mirror matchups in general are a little bit cheesy, I suppose. But Protoss versus Protoss, I mean, Protoss has got a lot of early game builds that are just simply extremely viable. And scouting out exactly what's going on is indeed important. MaNa immediately sending one of the Stalkers inside of his own main base to figure out if maybe there was a cheeky little probe hiding somewhere. Likewise, of course, ShoWTimE is doing the same thing with a Mothership core. And both players, like, look at this, right? They're just spreading out all over the map to make sure that they are not going to be caught with their pants down with any kind of early Stargate shenanigans or any kind of robotics player, maybe even a proxy Dark Templar. Both players are just simply scouting about the map. Now, we do see a bit of a build order deviation. MaNa is going into that Blink Stalker, whereas indeed ShoWTimE is building up the Nexus already on the other side of the map. That does mean that ShoWTimE will have to play defensively here for a little while. Now, it looks like both players actually may be done here scouting around the map. There are already 4 Stalkers here grouped up for MaNa. The other 2 are just about to join in as well for ShoWTimE. So ShoWTimE is going to be capable of, you know, fighting a little bit more on even footing right here as well. It looks like actually we may clash here for just a little bit. This is always a little bit funny. There's going to be some Stalker shenanigans. Both players trying to micro backwards. And actually, so far, this is looking pretty solid right here for ShoWTimE. May even be able to get the upper hand, although MaNa is still chasing down here as well, trying to get that high ground vision. But nope, it doesn't matter. An eye for an eye right there. And actually, all things considered, I think I'm going to have to give the upper hand right here to MaNa after that early game shenanigans, just because this Stalker right here is going to be bruised. Now, actually, ooh, that Stalker did not catch wind of that single gateway going down. MaNa, he's got 2 gateways right now, I believe, in the main base. Yes, he's got no Nexus just yet. So that does mean that ShoWTimE will have to defend against his Blink Stalker shenanigans here in just a little bit. Now, ShoWTimE is indeed getting that robotics facility. Very, very important, because he's going to need it. He's going to need those Immortals to shoo away those Blink Stalker. And as it is right now, look at this. Photon Overcharge is going to be absolutely crucial. ShoWTimE trying to push forward right now, trying to bait that that Photon Overcharge. Actually does get the weakened, the bruised Stalker that he hit a couple of times earlier. But that Mothership core is going to be an absolute necessity, because Blink is not done just yet. But MaNa is just simply trying to force some energy out of that Photon Overcharge. And look at that. There's actually enough energy for 2 more Photon Overcharges right now, which is a big deal, because ShoWTimE, as it is right now, of course, doesn't really have a whole lot of army value. And shortly there's going to be 3 Stalker warp-ins here, or warp-ins right here at once. This is going to be a little bit risky, though. One of them immediately, once again, does end up falling. And I actually got to be honest, I do like the micro so far here from MaNa, just simply being patient. The thing, however, is that an Immortal is just about to come out, and Immortals are extremely good when it comes to fighting this Stalker Bull. The amount of army here available, though, right now for MaNa is absolutely insane. A lot of units are indeed out, but the thing is that Immortal is now also ready to go, and the second one, I mean, it will probably be queued up here in just a little bit. It's going to be able to deal a lot of damage. On top of that, we do see that Blink Stalker upgrade, and in the meantime, on the other side of the map, of course, the Nexus was built, but just a little bit later than his opponents. One of the Stalkers looking badly bruised right there. Actually, we see a couple of Adepts going into the main base, which I like a lot. This will force indeed the probes off of the line, because the Photon Overcharge will be an absolute necessity right now inside of the main base. That Mothership Core is going to try and see whatever it can do right here, because a couple of the Protoss units do end up falling. But look at that Immortal. The Immortal is just simply going to town here, taking so many hits already with them. Photon Overcharge does get activated there in the main base. One of the Stalkers actually just barely making it out of there alive, but still, even though 4 probes ended up falling, I really like the position that our red Protoss player is in right now. ShoWTimE, of course. I mean, he's been able to mine from that natural for such a long time already, right? And MaNa is doing the exact same thing right now as well, but he's only just now getting started. That just simply means that ShoWTimE has been able to accumulate a lot more stuff. And not only that, he's also been able to accumulate the counter to his opponent's army. I mean, and that is quite literally the Immortal. The third Immortal just about to come out. The third Immortal, of course, is a very important one, because that allows you, with the 3 of them, to one-shot these Stalkers. Third gas now also being taken here for ShoWTimE, and he's going to be capable of warping in, and I wonder if he's planning to go for maybe a bit of counter-attack aggression. Now, of course, this is not over by any stretch of the imagination. We actually now do see that the charge upgrade, the Zealot leg upgrade right here, for the Protoss units in blue, and we also see that robotic facility going down for Liquid MaNa. Of course, he's going to have to get something else that is not just pure Stalker, but as long as he manages to deal with the next counterattack from his opponent, that's what I mean, right? Like, I mean, ShoWTimE, definitely that defensive player in the earlier part of the game for most of the matches that I've seen him play. He's going to be capable of, you know, either pushing right now with a very important and very powerful Immortal Ball, and actually, judging by the amount of gateways going down, there's a chance he may do exactly that, or he can just simply sit back and take a third base instead. More and more Stalkers now are actually moving across the map as well. There are observers out right now for both of these players. It's funny, even though like they're going for absolutely opposite build orders almost, the observers still come out in very even numbers, and it looks like indeed ShoWTimE may be looking to go for that third base. Now, a lot of Stalkers here are already ready to try and counter that if that Nexus goes down, although the Nexus falls, or no, the Nexus does go down, and the oh, actually, the observers meet in the middle of the map. Will I get a little a little kiss. Oh, that was so cute. A little observer kiss right there, but it doesn't really matter. ShoWTimE was not having any of that. He's actually got to be very careful, though. Yeah, look at that. Oh, my God. Actually, ShoWTimE Stalkers do get intercepted right there. And while both of them have Blink, I think that Liquid MaNa is going to be able to catch up with these absolutely easily. And that's what I mean, right? Even though ShoWTimE was most definitely ahead here earlier, I'm starting to get a little bit worried because, of course, these Stalkers are going to be caught in a very weird angle here on this map. Now, it looks like we got some decent micro here coming out of ShoWTimE, making sure that most of these Stalkers get on out of there alive. But still, this is not quite the composition that you want to be in. And the Blink Stalkers indeed do move up there. They're going to be able to play Ring Around the Rosie for a little while, trying to split off here to the best of their abilities, but ShoWTimE definitely losing way more Stalkers than that single observer was worth. We do indeed see that third Nexus now also going down here for our Protoss player in blue, but it looks like ShoWTimE may have very well had enough. I mean, he's probably going to end up losing another Stalker or two, which would actually be pretty terrible for him. He's going to end up losing every single last one of them. Observer does indeed scout out the natural right there as well, and I mean, ShoWTimE must realize that he's got the Immortal upper hand. The thing is, of course, that he just simply does not have a huge amount of, you know, ground army anymore. He needs some higher tier units, and actually we see that switch right now as well into those double Stargates. ShoWTimE is planning to make a bit of a transition. Meanwhile, on the other end of the map, Liquid MaNa recognizes as well that he is going to be behind in that Immortal count. And one of the best ways to counteract that is, of course, with these Disruptors. It's one of the few matchups where Disruptors are indeed extremely common. Disruptors against Blink Stalkers, it gets extremely messy. It's one of the personal reasons why I love watching Protoss versus Protoss, but I really dislike playing it just because the Blink Stalker versus Disruptor balls and them fighting together, I mean, it's an absolute mess. The thing is, of course, that there's gonna be a lot of of, what are they called, Phoenixes out here in just a second. And that's going to be important, but hold that thought though, because Liquid MaNa has got an awful lot of stuff. Beautiful force fields actually getting a great hit off there on these Immortals. Absolutely decimating it. The question is that going to be enough? But look at this setup. That force field ball was gorgeous. Oh man, that was absolutely beautiful. Force fielding all around those Immortals and then sending in the Disruptor Ball. And I mean, there are a lot of units out right now trying to get whatever probe kills he can. The Immortals, of course, still dealing damage here too, but that was so sick. That was such a beautiful set of force fields. And look at the amount of probes that end up falling. I mean, ShoWTimE trying to go for that Phoenix switch, right? So he can lift up these high tier units. But indeed, Liquid MaNa in a very solid game number 1 ends up obtaining the victory. Not gonna lie, that force field trap was absolutely beautiful. I mean, he literally just force fielded around all of the Immortals, forcing them closer together, and then he sent in that Disruptor Ball. It's such a cute move and such a difficult thing to execute. Anyway, right here, we're in game number 2, an Ascension to IRLE. And of course, this could potentially be match point right here for the blue Protoss player. Spawning in the top left corner, he goes by the nickname of MaNa. And of course, his opponent all the way on the other side of the map goes by the nickname of ShoWTimE. Now, ShoWTimE most definitely had the upper hand right there after the early part of the game, but I felt like he got a little bit greedy shooting down that Observer. I mean, think about it, right? You don't really need like 8 Stalkers to shoot down a single Observer. In most of the instances, just about 2 or 1 even are going to be more than enough, because that Observer is not going to be able to fly away very rapidly. And Liquid MaNa just happened to be out on the map with a lot of his Stalkers as well. I think he was looking to try and see if he could get a kill on that 3rd Nexus, but instead, he ended up getting a kill on most of his opponent's army, and I think he would take that advantage every single day of the week. ShoWTimE once again scouting around his main base, making sure that no cheeky shenanigans is going down in this match so far. Once again, we do see a double gateway opener right here by both of these players. Of course, the absolute gold standard lately. A lot of players have indeed been going for that Stalker play, just because, you know, the Stalkers are great early game scouting units, and while the Adepts were sort of like a very common thing for a little while, the Stalker opener, of course, basically counters it now that the Adept shades do not have nearly as much vision anymore. In the past, people would open up with a lot of Adept just to make sure that they would get vision of their opponent's main bases. They would just simply send in the shade right here and, you know, scout around all of the main base. But since the shade doesn't really provide that much vision anymore, we are back to the good old days where the Stalker was indeed the standard. Now, we do see a probe scout going down right now for ShoWTimE. I wonder what exactly he's got in store for us here. Maybe he just wants to know whether or not it's going to be a very quick 1-base expansion here. Of course, the Cybernetics core just about to finish up, and I always love watching this production tab. It's essentially identical here in the earlier part of the game. And actually, well, we do apparently see that double Adept opener coming out of ShoWTimE right now. It's still one of the things that you do see quite a bit. Personally though, I've been doing a lot of Stalker based openers instead, just because, well, generally speaking, the Stalkers, the 4 Stalkers in particular, are going to be able to counter the Adepts just fine. Very similar build though, coming out right here in game number 2 from Liquid MaNa. Right after that probe leaves the main base, he immediately puts down the Twilight Council, so he's going to be capable of getting himself you know, those juicy blink Stalkers out once again, and he queues up the 3rd as well as the 4th Stalker right from the get-go. Follow up right now as well after these 2 Adepts from ShoWTimE with Stalkers here too, and we'll see exactly what his plan is, because once again, he is not going for any kind of additional tech just yet, and he instead opts to go for the Mothership core and just play it a little bit more safely. I mean, almost identical builds right now from both of these players. Liquid MaNa recognizing exactly what is going on right here from that early game shenanigans, scouting around for proxies, and of course, while the Shade will be able to get these Adepts to safety for the time being, I think that these Stalkers may very well be able to pick them up. Now, nice little bit of juking though. Look at that. That was such a cheeky little move, and I actually think that ShoWTimE may be able to get inside of the main of his opponent here very, very shortly. Nexus going down once more here for ShoWTimE. He's going to be capable of scouting as well that his opponent's Nexus is nowhere to be seen just yet, and while MaNa is putting up a pylon here on the other side of the map, that got scouted almost right away, so that means no proxy gateway this time around, and MaNa is going to find another way. He's going to have to find another way to go ahead and warp in. Now, this is a nice little juke once again. Stalkers coming in from both angles. I think that at least one of these guys will end up falling there. Come on, you got to target fire that. There we go. One of them does end up getting killed. At the same time, though, the Adepts once again trying to shade into that natural. They'll quickly find out that there is going to be a Blink Stalker push coming his way very shortly once more. One of the probes snuck out, and he will be able to get some more information here. But maybe a whole lot of these probes may actually end up falling. I mean, these Adepts will still be able to two-shot them. Shades do get cancelled here as well, and already 3 of them end up getting killed. Of course, these Adepts are rather tanky, in particular against these Stalker shots, and 5 probes is a big deal when you know your opponent is going up against this, you know, oh my god, that's actually a really sick play right there by ShoWTimE. I mean, ShoWTimE, he's going to end up losing a Stalker or 2, and that's all fine and dandy, because he ended up shooting down 6 of his opponent's probes, and he knows that Liquid MaNa was planning on going for an aggressive, you know, an aggressive Blink Stalker kind of push, and that means he's bought himself a lot of time to get these Immortals out. I mean, this is almost an identical game from game number 2, with the exception, of course, that there were 2 Adepts here initially, and while I assumed that MaNa was going to be able to pick up on them quite easily, and he initially did, they ended up making their way towards that mineral line, and shooting down a bunch of these probes literally just slows down this build so very much. I love it. Hallucinated Immortal. That may very well force him to target fire it down. Of course, we will recognize that this is not going to be a true Immortal, in the sense that it ended up taking far more damage there than it should have been, but that was such a cute little move. He's going to be capable of dealing quite a bit of damage just like that. And I mean, we're in a very similar situation right now where, once again, MaNa is going to be capable of shading some of these Adepts into the main base, and I mean, we're just simply seeing ShoWTimE build up that Immortal count. This time around, he's also got an Observer, just in case there was going to be a Dark Templar follow-up, as the push, of course, was delayed quite a bit, but all things considered, I don't think it's going to do all too much. I mean, look at this. This will absolutely get shut down. Now, that was a beautiful micro move right there, though. ShoWTimE actually force-fielding his own ramp, trying to prevent these units from being able to get on out of there very easily, and of course also these units from getting in there. But ShoWTimE still ends up playing this absolutely brilliantly, and he ends up obtaining the victory with relative ease here in game number 2. And there we have it, the final match of this series, and we're playing it on Abyssal Reef LE. Of course, one of the most macro-heavy maps in the current map pool. We see that quick, easy to take natural, quick, easy to take third base. There's this low ground one that you can easily defend, as well as this one over here. There's another base on the right-hand side, and even sometimes, every now and then, the base right here to the, I guess, the left-hand side right there of that natural, though there's a massive loop around from the natural expansion towards this base as well, and it's very much so exposed, of course. Even though, you know, the bases are easy to take, this is still a Protoss versus Protoss, but if there is going to be a long macro game, this is most definitely going to be the map for it. Regardless though, spawning in the bottom right corner, playing with the red Protoss pieces, we have none other than ShoWTimE. And his opponent spawning in the blue and playing in the top left, we have none other than Team Liquid's MaNa. Now here's the thing, right? I wonder if ShoWTimE is really feeling bothered after game number 1. I mean, game number 1, I felt like he had a huge upper hand after initially defending that Stalker shenanigans, right? I felt like he was playing it very well. ShoWTimE, that is. He was just simply losing a lot of the Stalkers after he tried sniping one of his opponent's Observers, and even though he had Blink out, pretty much every single Stalker that was out on the map at that point got picked up for essentially free, and that was just simply too much of a loss to come back from. And MaNa played it out brilliantly, saw that he was very far ahead, and he, you know, responded accordingly. Now, I wonder if ShoWTimE really, you know, feels bad after that match. The thing, of course, is that ShoWTimE really, like, he didn't really make a mistake until he, like, sent out those Stalkers across the map, right? And he ended up losing the whole bunch of them. But he played pretty solid here in game number 1 or 2, and Liquid MaNa must realize that in the first match he did get a little bit lucky, and we'll see whether or not he's gonna be playing something different here as well, because so far it seems like against this Blink Stalker pressure, I mean, ShoWTimE has got a pretty much a perfect answer. Anyway, ShoWTimE is once again sending a probe across the map. He's gonna be capable of figuring out exactly how much gas here is being mined by his opponent. He's gonna be capable of getting in there. You will see indeed that it's once again a double Stargate opener, and interestingly enough, actually, oh, he's apparently gonna steal some minerals as well. Look at that thief. You're gonna steal some of its opponent's minerals. That's dirty. But once again, we do see those double Adepts coming down here for ShoWTimE. It seems to be mostly like a point of preference or something. I'm not sure. Maybe he's doing it like depending on the map that he is playing on. Kind of surprised. He's still going to be able to follow this up with double Stalkers though. But of course, I feel like in most of the, you know, highest level Protoss versus Protoss that I have seen, these double Adept openers just simply get picked up on so very easily. And even though they're going to try and make their way through the map in a bit of a funny angle, generally speaking, the Blink Stalker are going to be more than enough. But MaNa playing it a bit differently here. Going for that faster Mothership Core this time around, which I really like. And on top of that, he's also throwing down the Nexus. So he's saying to his opponent, hey, Want to play a macro game? And ShoWTimE is like, yeah, sure. I'll put I'll put down my own Nexus here as well. Adepts will be able to scout up to that high ground. They will indeed confirm that that Nexus went down, and with that, both players are pretty much fully aware of exactly what is going on here on the other side of the map as well. Now, of course, MaNa will be able to get on in there very shortly, but just simply judging by the timing of all of these units, as well as just the general, like, maneuvering, I suppose, they're going to be able to figure out very shortly what is going on here, even without scouting that Nexus going down for his opponent. I mean, you usually want to play it a little bit more aggressively. Regardless, though, there's going to be a pylon here already at the front. The Adepts are going to try and shade into the main base. Mothership Core, however, is still hovering out over here. And indeed, the Adept shades do get cancelled in time. Robotic Facility now also going down here for Liquid MaNa. He's going to be able to start building up his own Immortal count. And on top of that, he's getting that Twilight Council in a very similar fashion, actually, as ShoWTimE did in game number 1 and 2. Almost like identical builds, though, from both of these players. I mean, look at this. Look at that production tab, right? It's almost identical at this point in time. And both players definitely, taking a very similar approach to this matchup right now whenever they scouted out exactly what is going on. First Observer will come out here very shortly. The same can be said on the other side of the map as well. Liquid MaNa is going to be able to fly those units across, and while there's going to be a little bit of Blink Stalker Micro, or rather a little bit of Stalker Micro here back and forth, with Blink being researched here, I think, for both sides of the spectrum very shortly. We'll see if it really will come into play, because I feel like most of this is going to be decided just by simply seeing the amount of production here. Now, ShoWTimE actually chrono boosting it out already. He does have the gas for it right now. I'm assuming he's going to start it up. There we go. For a second, it almost looked like he was going to end up losing one or two of these precious chrono boost right there. But in the end, he did end up starting up that Blink Stalker upgrade there nevertheless. It would have been a huge shame if you actually forgot about that. I've seen players do that, where they start up the chrono boost and they start up, they thought they started up the upgrade, but then it turned out that it just barely did not have enough resources there. ShoWTimE just barely did not have enough gas, but he called it in time, and he's going to be able to start up that upgrade in a decently timed manner. Single Hallucinated Phoenix now going to be able to figure out exactly what is going on, and indeed, ShoWTimE will confirm here that they are going up against, a near identical build. His Protoss units are going to have to fight something very, very similar. However, one of the things that is not quite the same here is that Liquid MaNa is building up a proxy pylon here on the left-hand side of the map, and on top of that, there is also a Dark Shrine going down. Besides that, he is following it up with a robotics base, so he's going to be able to go for a lot of different tech here, whereas his opponent is still a little bit stuck on this Stalker Immortal Ball, which is not necessarily weaker, but he is going to need a counter here to try and deal with those Dark Templar. Now, I wonder, though, if MaNa is really going to be able to do a whole lot of damage with the DTs. I mean, of course, there's going to be an Observer out for his opponent at this point in the game, but he is looking to take that third Nexus at this point as well, and he's going to be capable of getting that one up and running. Of course, seeing that robotics bay here may very well trigger ShoWTimE to go ahead and not really worry about the Dark Templar all too much either, because, I mean, he did scout that the robotics bay was down. The first Disruptor does get queued up as well, but of course, if all things go absolutely terrible, MaNa is still going to be capable of using the Dark Shrine just for a little bit of Archon production. Third Nexus does go down right here on the top left-hand side of the map. Bottom right-hand side, however, shows the exact same building going down as well. And actually, that Warp Prism just barely moved by the vision range right there of ShoWTimE. So that Warp Prism is going to be able to make its way across the map and potentially warp in a couple of Dark Templar. ShoWTimE, however, is going to have to push here for at least a little bit. He's bringing that Observer with him as well, and with that, no more detection here at home other than that single cannon. A couple of Dark Templar do indeed get loaded up in there, and while there may be a Council Force right here at this third base location, the Immortal is now also trying to join this fight too. There is now also a Disruptor out, so maybe he can get a proper hit off, at the very least shoo his opponent's units away here for the time being. That Warp Prism is going to be able to do a whole lot of damage. The Dark Templar going absolutely to town here in that mineral line, absolutely tearing all of these probes to shreds, and I love it. I mean, he really tricked his opponent right there by just simply getting that robotics bay at a very standard timing, but not really being able to properly produce out of it just yet. He still ended up dealing so much damage just with a couple of Dark Templar, because he knew that that hallucinated Phoenix would end up scouting what is going on there anyway. And even though he ended up getting a little bit of damage done to that Nexus. I mean, it took some base damage, all things considered. That most definitely turned out to be an advantage right here for the Protoss player. Now, apparently, for the Protoss player in blue, that is. Now, apparently, there was a little bit of a pause right there. Not a very big deal here whatsoever. But ShoWTimE, I mean, he's got to be capable of starting up the mining right now at the third base as well. And while the player in blue has got a slight upper hand, I highly doubt that he's going to be able to close out the game right here, right now. Because, I mean, this defensive position here, even with that Archon, right, it's going to be a tough one to break. Now, of course, they are going to have... These Protoss units are going to have to be in a proper position. Photon Overcharge archers do go down there, and we actually see some beautiful... Oh my god, that was gorgeous right there. You see that? He just nearly does not get this Disruptor hit off because the Phoenixes lifted it up in time right there. But the Warp Prism ended up dropping that single Disruptor right there. ShoWTimE canceling that from destroying his entire army by picking it up right here in time with these Phoenixes. Now, a couple more Immortals are now also being morphed in. Zealots as a follow-up here too. The Zealot leg upgrade, however, is not done just yet, but it does look like ShoWTimE is gonna be in for a world of hurt here if he's not defending his two bases here at once. I wonder though, is MaNa gonna try and push up to this third base location, or if he's simply just gonna gonna go ahead and push into the natural here instead? So many of these units are joining in, and this is where the Protoss versus Protoss matchup becomes extremely hectic. I mean, we see that Blink Stalker micro versus Disruptors versus a whole lot of these Phoenixes that are gonna try and lift up the Disruptors before they get a proper hit off. Of course, however, the Immortals can shoot away at these Stalkers extremely efficiently, and the Archons can absolutely tear Phoenixes apart. So it becomes a really curious dynamic where really like the player with the better control will usually end up obtaining the victory, and it's a very tricky thing to do properly. It's a very difficult thing to do. So it's one of the few matchups I feel like where even though you may be behind in the army supply, with proper control you can still obtain the victory here. And here goes nothing because Liquid MaNa has got a huge amount of supply here, definitely a bigger force than his opponent, trying to do as much damage here as he can with the units that he's cut. Disruptors now being forced forward right there. Nice little hit there, not gonna lie, that actually ended up hurting quite a lot. Of course, however, the Photon Overcharges are dealing huge amounts of damage here as well. Disruptors do get picked up here, but the question is there not just simply a little bit too much here for the blue Protoss player? It looks like he's gonna be forced to push back here for at least the time being. A lot of these Archons, however, do end up surviving, but I think that ShoWTimE, you know, the fact of the matter is that he was capable of fighting on top of all of these pylons, and the pylons did so much damage there with those Photon Overcharges. It put him into a pretty decent position, and actually, the army supply counts right now are going to be dead even. Liquid MaNa, though, not quite done with the aggression just yet. He's gonna try and get back in there. Of course, he can't quite lift up these Archons, but these Immortals can be taken out of the equation very, very rapidly. On top of that, of course, that Warp Prism can be forced out as well, and that Warp Prism does end up falling. So no more, like, pickup juggling right here with these Immortals or the Archons and all of that, and so much damage here is being done. ShoWTimE just simply out-controlling his opponent right there, and he ends up taking a huge lead here, even though he was behind in the army supplies before that engagement started. And that's exactly what I mean right there. I mean, ShoWTimE showcasing some brilliant defense right there, really making the most of the little army that he's got. And I mean, we gotta keep in mind, though, these like Phoenixes did so much damage, and on top of that, I mean, the Photon Overcharges are extremely good. Extremely good. And now he's gonna be able to use the Phoenixes for some counterattack damage as well. A lot of probes will end up falling here in just a matter of seconds. The Stalkers, of course, will try and intercept that, but 6 probes already is going to be pretty solid. And now they get to say hi to their Space Shark friend. I mean, I don't really know exactly why he's floating around here, or technically we're underwater, I suppose, so I guess that would make us... Would that make the Phoenixes swim? I don't know if Phoenixes... No, actually, judging by the way that Phoenixes glide, I don't think they can swim. It doesn't make any sense, but the ones again are going to be capable of picking up more and more of the probe kills, and that is just simply going to be a world of hurt right here for Liquid MaNa. I honestly think that Liquid MaNa probably wanted to back off here once those Photon Overcharges got activated. I mean, that was like 3 or 4 of them all at once, and that just simply dealt so much damage. Regardless, though, of course, he's not out of this game yet. I mean, by no stretch of the imagination, when a Protoss player has got this much production as well as a fort base going up, is he out of the game just yet. He will just simply have to do something similar like his opponent did as well. In ShoWTimE, it doesn't really seem like he's missed very much yet in this series, other than like the Stalker move out in game number 1. When it comes to just a straight up micro, I mean, I felt like that was more or less like a decision making mistake rather than a control mistake. And I mean, ShoWTimE has been doing a great job juggling all of the units. Now, interestingly enough, we actually see that MaNa mothership going down right now as well. And this is one of the more recent developments, I feel like, or one of the more recent developments in Protoss versus Protoss. It used to be popular back in the day as well, but that mothership core is going to morph into a mothership and therefore cloak the majority of this army. And you got to keep in mind, there's a ton of anti-air units here, right? If you manage to get that cloaking field out and you get these phoenixes ready to go, as long as you just simply shoot down your opponent's observer, it's going to be extremely tricky to see the opponent's army here. And while once again the phoenixes are keeping the blue Protoss here at bay, once that mothership finishes up, this is going to be a very interesting fight to see, because all he needs to do is just simply kill his opponent's observer and he's going to be capable of dealing a ton of damage. Now, the Dark Shrine, by the way, does end up getting scouted there. I wonder if he's going to send some units over there. It does look like a couple of hero zealots will be tasked with that duty, so they're going to be capable of getting over there. But with the mothership just about to finish up, this is going to be an extremely interesting battle that is coming up next, because as long as his opponent, you know, loses that observer, I think that ShoWTimE is going to be in a great position. Now, even then though, the robotics facility, of course, can still produce disruptors. Disruptors can still deal damage even to army that they technically can't see. So this is going to be an interesting engagement, because there are tons, and I mean tons, of disruptors available, but at the same time, a lot of phoenixes here ready to pick all of those units up as well. And actually, a little bit overzealous right there. He ends up doing a bit of damage here, but there we go. Disruptors going in. Phoenix is trying to go for those pickup micros, but with some great control, MaNa is still dealing an awful lot of damage right there to all of these units. The question is it going to be enough? Both players taking heavy losses right now, but you can see the detection is not there right now for Liquid MaNa, desperately trying to blink forward there and get that mothership taken out of the equation. And while it eventually does end up falling, I wonder if he did not just simply dedicate a bit too much army supply to trying to get that one down though. But at the same time, while we saw that on the other side of the map as well, in ShoWTimE's favor, the photon overcharge is dealing an awful lot of damage, and this time around MaNa once again manages to shoo back his opponent. Such great control. This is what I mean, right? This is why I love watching Protoss versus Protoss, and I think it's an absolutely incredible matchup, but also why it is so very difficult to play. I mean, this is not an easy thing to achieve. I mean, microing like 4 different spellcasters, making sure that your immortals are target firing down the stalkers, making sure that your observers are not flying in head first, making sure that you're not losing random units and that you pick them up with the warp prism, making sure that you know, pick up your opponent's immortals and then also the disruptors when they're firing with the phoenixes. I mean, people always make fun of Protoss being the A-move race, but I could not disagree more. I mean, if there's any race that likes the A-move, it's probably Zerko, right? And I say that being a Zerk player at heart. However, we gotta be careful here. The disruptors are once again here to deal so much damage, and actually, wow, some huge hits by Liquid MaNa. Even though he doesn't have the amount of army right here that we were really looking for, the disruptors getting a ton of value of. The thing, of course, is that there are still a ton of Archons as well as Immortals here available, and they are some of the most tanky units in the game. Stalkers alone are not gonna cut that, and even though the disruptor hits were on point right there, I think that Liquid MaNa will indeed be forced to retreat here for the time being. And just tech-wise, right? ShoWTimE's army is just simply more beefy. I mean, look at this. How are you gonna break this? Right? How are you gonna break this with the army that he's got right now? A new mothership once again being morphed in here as well. And this is gonna hurt because, I mean, while Liquid MaNa does have his own disruptors out, right? And he's actually producing 2 at once right now as well. Most of them did end up getting killed. And that means that with these phoenixes out right now as well, right? These phoenixes are gonna be good to shut down 4 disruptors in total. They're going to be great in the next engagements and very crucial as well, because this Immortal Archon Bolt is going to be able to do so much damage. Nice flanking disruptor shot right there. Will get rid of a couple of those shields and maybe a Zealot or 2 as well. But at the same time, we see that Warp Prism of ShoWTimE going inside of the main base of his opponent, absolutely shutting down a bunch of the production there. And once again, we'll be able to lift on out of there and, you know, at the very least, shut down that energy on that robotics facility. And at least, like, force a couple of the units here from his opponent back into the main base. I think that Warp Prism may be caught in a bit of a weird angle though, and it may very well end up falling, or not. I mean, sure, you may live to I guess, warp another day. ShoWTimE, he's finishing up that mothership. He's warping in more and more zealots. He's getting a whole bunch of cannons up, and he's just simply playing defensive here. He's like, alright, I know that I am ahead right now in the army supply count. A counterattack could hurt me, so if I warp in cannons in each and every single one of my bases, Dark Templar and whatnot cannot really hurt me, and nor can Zealots, unless he's committing a ton of resources to it, and at that point he's not gonna have nearly as much army to fight me with at home. At the same time, a Stasis Ward, however, can potentially come back here as well, and this is gonna hurt if a bunch of this army gets caught. A couple of these Stalkers do it, or a couple of the Archons rather, do end up taking a lot of damage, but MaNa recognizes it. He just simply does not have enough army supply, and ShoWTimE obtains the victory. What a beautiful series. I hope you enjoy watching it as well. If you have not already, make sure you hit that like button down below, and if you want to see more, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get a notification as soon as I upload more. And other than that, I want to thank you for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile, alright? And I will see you in the next one.